The situation in the Middle East, already fragile, has taken a dramatic and dangerous turn as Egyptian forces reportedly struck Israeli fortifications along Gaza's border, an unprecedented escalation between two long-standing adversaries. The move comes amid intensifying conflict and fraught diplomacy and underscores a mounting regional crisis. According to reports, a video titled "Middle East Tensions Rise as Egypt Hits Israeli Gaza Fortifications" appeared just days ago, signaling heightened conflict dynamics. Though details remain sparse, the symbolic weight of Egypt, historically a mediator between Israel and Gaza, firing on Israeli defensive structures cannot be overstated. To understand the significance of this development, one must recall that Egypt has long held a delicate balancing role, fending off internal pressure from its public to more forcefully support Palestinians, while retaining the 1979 peace treaty with Israel. Since the outbreak of large-scale war in Gaza in October 2023, relations have frayed. In May 2024, Israeli troops entered parts of Rafah and took control of the Rafah crossing, prompting Egyptian condemnation and disrupting humanitarian aid flows. These tensions have festered over more than a year and continue to shape current developments. Egypt's reported strike appears to signal a breaking point. Though the scale of the action remains unclear, any military targeting of Israeli positions implies a shift from diplomatic posturing to direct confrontation. Moreover, the diplomatic fallout is already reverberating internationally. Egypt recently joined South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, a move Israeli officials called the worst since the war started. Simultaneously, the landscape within Gaza shifted significantly earlier this year when Israel announced and completed the creation of the Morag Corridor, a strategic security strip slicing through southern Gaza from Gaza toward the Mediterranean, effectively isolating Rafah. Such incursions into what was previously neutral territory intensified Egyptian fears of destabilization, mass displacement, and possibly a reemergence of Sinai insurgency, which Egypt has gone to great lengths to contain. Within this tense regional framework, the first reports of Egypt striking Israeli fortifications raise myriad questions. What forces were involved? Was it artillery, airstrikes, or other means? Were there casualties? For Israel, the message is as clear as it is alarming. An erstwhile partner is now an adversary in the Gaza conflict, and the region edges even closer to wider war. On the Israeli side, these developments are likely to fortify hardline positions. Already, Israeli settler groups and politicians have pushed to expand operations and fortifications within Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel maintains several security corridors, including the Philadelphia Corridor, in place since May 2024, designed to separate Gaza from Sinai and control movement on the Rafah border. Should Egypt target these installations, Israel may retaliate and escalate further. Beyond military dynamics, humanitarian concerns are dire. Egypt has controlled the Rafah crossing, the primary conduit for aid into Gaza. Yet stringent checks and pause in operations have severely curbed aid volume. Further deterioration in Egyptian-Israeli coordination may paralyze aid flows entirely, plunging Gaza deeper into crisis. Meanwhile, international activism has not waned. A planned global march to Gaza, which intended to rally humanitarian and solidarity convoys from Arish, Egypt, to Rafah, was canceled in mid-June after arrests and deportations of protesters, highlighting Egypt's increasingly cautious stance even toward peaceful humanitarian overtures. With Egypt now reportedly striking Israeli positions, the margin for such initiatives shrinks further. Egypt's official posture, beyond the ICJ filing, remains defensive. Egyptians fear both refugee influx into Sinai and the transfer of conflict across its borders. Their government has consistently rejected Israeli proposals for relocating Palestinians into Sinai, citing both peace treaty obligations and national security concerns. Yet reports of strikes suggest that Egypt is now actively asserting its sovereignty in the face of perceived existential threats to its border security. Israel, facing strikes on its fortifications, may respond with kinetic force, but it must also calculate the broader regional ramifications. Retaliation risks drawing Jordan, Lebanon, or Syria into new alignments or conflicts, or further inflaming public opinion across the Arab world. Egypt's move may embolden others to challenge Israel's Gaza operations, particularly in the absence of effective diplomacy. At the diplomatic level, this incident may collapse long-held negotiation frameworks. Egypt has hosted negotiations between Israel, Hamas, and Qatar. A pivot to open hostility may dismantle those channels. Without Egypt as mediator, United States or European mediators may face an even steeper uphill battle at securing ceasefires or humanitarian access. In the near term, eyes will turn to the United Nations and international community. Will they condemn Egypt? Israel? Will states threaten to sanction or intervene diplomatically? Egypt's new posture aligns it more overtly with Palestinian resistance, even as it maintains formal peace with Israel. International reactions may diverge. Some Arab states may lend quiet or overt support, while others, such as Gulf allies leaning toward normalization with Israel, may distance themselves from Cairo. Within the region, analysts will look for signs of military escalation. Has Egypt reconfigured its air defenses along the border? Is it mobilizing armor in Sinai? Has Israel augmented its fortifications or launched preemptive strikes inside Egypt's territory? These questions will dominate intelligence assessments and regional forecasting. Media and public opinion across Arab capitals may swing strongly in Egypt's favor or against it, depending on civilian consequences and the specter of war. In Egypt, nationalistic narratives may strengthen President al-Sisi's domestic legitimacy, especially among populations who have long decried what they see as Egyptian passivity in Gaza's suffering. Yet the risk is considerable. Military engagement with Israel threatens the peace treaty that has kept decades of relative stability between the two countries. Meanwhile, Gazans within the Strip face yet another blow to their already dire plight. Any disruption to aid access or further destruction of infrastructure spells catastrophic escalation across Gaza's humanitarian dimensions. International investigators may call for war crimes inquiries, and aid agencies will likely seize upon this turn of events to amplify warnings of collapse. Stepping back, we see a potentially historic rupture. Egypt, after decades of carefully calibrated diplomacy and implicit coordination on border management, may have crossed a threshold into active conflict. This could mark the end of Egypt's role as stabilizer in the Israeli-Palestinian tinderbox, and instead signal the opening of a multi-front regional crisis. Diplomats in Washington, Brussels, Istanbul, Doha, and Riyadh are watching closely. Will the U.S. pressure de-escalation? Will the EU weigh in with sanctions threats or mediation initiatives? Will regional powers recalibrate alliances? The impact may echo through corridors of power worldwide. In sum, Middle East tensions rise as Egypt hits Israeli Gaza fortifications is not simply an isolated headline. It is the culmination of layers of distrust pressure and strategic shifts that have been brewing since the Gaza war ignited in late 2023. What was once unthinkable, a direct Egyptian strike on Israeli positions, now appears to have occurred, and the world must reckon with the grade of crisis this represents. As this story unfolds, viewers and readers will be seeking clarity. Did Egypt intentionally strike? How did Israel respond? Were civilian lives impacted? Will this trigger broader war? And can any negotiation or ceasefire withstand such bold action? Answers are yet to come. But one thing is certain. The Middle East stands at a perilous crossroads, and the reverberations of this moment may define the region for years.